Welcome to a special monthly edition of Spirit Journey Collective, where we step away from interviews and dive deep into the collective energies of the upcoming month. For those who do not know, I am an intuitive tarot reader and spiritual channel. This episode will be focused on exploring the energies of the month ahead, such as themes, both good and challenging areas to be mindful of, as well as a channeled higher self message overall. As this is a collective reading, it is important to always remember to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. It is my belief that if you are tuning in today, it is because there is some form of guidance and wisdom waiting for you. But it doesn't mean the entire reading will resonate, although it may. My name is Sarah Ty, and I am your host, reader, and channeler for the upcoming reading ahead. And without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another monthly collective reading. This is for the upcoming month, July 2024, which is kind of exciting because my birthday's in July. So actually tomorrow is my birthday. Pretty cool. Last year I didn't have a podcast or anything like this to be tuning into. So it's just extra exciting this year. But yeah, so as usual, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. I'm going to go over a theme. I'm going to go over what's working for us. I'm going to go over a challenged area and then a higher self message. And so from what I'm gathering, just from the bird's eye view before we get and dive in, is that a lot of what's coming up from what I can see is some shadow work, I guess. I feel like it's a combination of shadow work and conquering limiting beliefs. So I would warn it's a little bit heavier this particular month. But that's okay, because duality is important, having both the good and the bad and the light and the dark, and it all is a balance, right? So it's, even though sometimes we don't necessarily want the heavier ones, it's needed. So again, take what resonates, leave what doesn't. This is a collective reading. Only some of it may resonate, or it could be that the whole thing will. It just depends on where you are in your life. But if you are tuning in, I do believe there's a reason you are, and I do believe there is something here waiting for you, some kind of wisdom, something that you needed to hear. So starting with the theme, I have the High Priestess. And so I love this card because it really encourages you to start listening within, start getting more connected with your intuition. And I know that's come up a few times in the last few collective readings, is this idea of plugging into your intuition, learning how to listen to those gut feelings or those messages or those downloads that will come to you. And so when the High Priestess is present, it's just saying, don't forget to listen. Don't forget to pay attention to the synchronistic things that may be happening in your life. You know, when you see angel numbers or something happens to line up just too perfectly that you know it wasn't just a coincidence. Or when you walk into a room and you get this gut feeling that something is wrong and you need to get out. Or you walk into a room and something feels like you need to be there for a reason, and follow that. Get curious. When the High Priestess comes up, I usually like to recommend writing down when you have those moments where you are getting a download or a gut feeling, write it down and just see how it plays out, and then write down that as well. And after a while, you'll create a paper trail where you can actually have evidence to those feelings that you are getting, which will help you trust yourself more too, and learn how to listen to that better. And also know what that feels like in your body, because the difference between our ego, our mind, is very different from intuition. Intuition often will come in quietly. It's like a tap on the shoulder. It doesn't necessarily repeat or ruminate, whereas the mind will ruminate and repeat and get stuck in a cycle. And so intuition is usually softer, but more poignant. So the theme for July is really to go inward and make sure that you are listening to what feels right in your body, what feels right about certain situations. If you're getting gut feelings about something, listen, follow it, see why it's coming up. The next card coming up is what is a positive aspect to lean on moving into the month of July. And I actually do love this one. It's the Page of Swords. The reason why I love this one is it really encourages you to advocate for yourself. This one often comes up for ex-people pleasers. So if you have had the tendency to people please, if you have had the tendency to silence yourself and not speak up and not speak your mind and not share your opinions or experiences because maybe you thought it wasn't valid compared to everyone else's, the Page of Swords is actually saying, no, your experience matters. Your opinion matters. What you're feeling about something matters. Your ideas around something matters. And it matters just as much as other people's opinions and experiences and ideas as well. They're equal. There's no better or less than. And remember, you have a unique perspective that only you can bring to the table in the way that you do. So the Page of Swords is just saying that something to harness in the month of July is keep advocating for yourself. Keep sharing those ideas and those experiences and those opinions, and know that they matter and know that they're valid. A great example for this one is, let's say you go and see a doctor because you have some kind of an ailment that you're concerned about. And let's say the doctor looks at it and goes, you're fine, go home. Like, it's not a big deal. And then you feel very dismissed. And so you kind of push back a bit and you say, well, with all due respect, I am having this issue and I'm concerned. I really would like you to look more into it. And the doctor says, no, you didn't go to school to be a doctor. I did. I know what's wrong with you, which is nothing. Go home. And being able to push back even more and say, I understand that you've gone to school to be a doctor and you have knowledge and degrees that I do not, but I am an expert in my own body. And something in my body feels wrong. And I need you to look into it for me, please. And so it's remembering that even up against someone who is, quote, an expert, right, who is more knowledgeable in certain areas, it doesn't negate your experience of it, because your experience is unique and your experience is valid. Especially in that example, it's perfect because it's in your own body. The doctor doesn't know what your body feels like and what feels right or wrong to you. The doctor's clinically looking at it from a diagnostic place, and you're looking at it from I know my body, something is wrong. So the Page of Swords is really just encouraging you to listen to your intuition and speak up, communicate. If something feels wrong, if something feels off, if you feel like you have an idea you need to put out there, or maybe you need to stand up for yourself. Either way, the encouragement is to do so. It's to use your voice. It's not to silence yourself, especially when it comes to someone else and whatever they bring to the table. Make sure you put yourself forward and you share what you need to share and advocate for yourself. And so this is really just encouraging you to do that, especially if you're coming from a people pleaser tendency. This is more scarier, but so much more empowering when you finally do it. And then the challenged area that we have is the Five of Cups. So this is just something to be mindful of that could be holding you back this month. So the Five of Cups is a grief card. And it is speaking to dealing with feelings of grief, which I know most people think of grief and they think of death or the loss of a loved one. It's not always death, though. It could be grieving the ending of a job. It could be grieving a relationship, romantic or a friendship. It could be moving out of a house that you've lived in for a long time and you just loved, and now you have to say goodbye to it. Grief is just basically letting go of these feelings that you weren't ready to let go of. And again, it could be planned. It could be like when there's a big move. Even when you want to move, even when you're excited about moving, it doesn't make the grief of letting go of the home that you've been in for, who knows how long at that point. You still have the grief of letting go of that space, or letting go of that job, or letting go of that relationship, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a challenged area with the Five of Cups being present, it's just saying, make sure you let yourself feel your feelings. And I do find this one kind of interesting because with it being with the intuition and then with it being this idea of advocating for yourself, that grief piece, it could be related to those two pieces, or it could be something entirely separate. But it is saying you need to let yourself feel. So let's say there's grief around speaking up. I know that even advocating for yourself comes with a level of grief, because maybe you're grieving the part of you that didn't speak up for many, many years. And now you're finally finding your voice and you're finally speaking up and you're finally advocating for yourself. There could be grief around the part of you that silenced yourself for so long, and you have to sit with that, like understand. And there's even usually forgiveness that comes with that too, forgiving yourself for silencing yourself for so many years, and kind of sitting with that grief of, wow, it took me this long to speak up. It could come in a number of different ways, but the important piece of it is you want to be able to allow yourself to feel. Grief is important because when you don't feel your feelings, and we live in a society that really tells you to get up, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, be productive, go out there and get things done, worry about your pain later. Feeling pain is weakness in a lot of ways in our society. And so there's a huge invitation to sweep it under the rug and not deal with it. But the thing is, the grief isn't going anywhere. And it can become debilitating, and it can become a thing that is keeping you from letting yourself move forward, or keeping you from speaking up and advocating for yourself, or keeping you from tapping into your intuitive knowing and the intuition that's trying to speak to you and come through this July. So whatever it is that you're grieving in your life right now, let yourself feel it. Let yourself process it. Know that it's completely normal. I know sometimes when, like, some of those more trivial examples, like moving from one job to another or from your home to another, sometimes people could think like, oh my gosh, it's just a move. Like, why am I having such a hard time with this? Because you're human, and because you're allowed to feel, and because we all have attachments to things. And that's part of being human. So don't feel like grieving isn't important. You have to let yourself process and say goodbye properly. And, sometimes the grieving process takes time, especially if it is the loss of a loved one or a meaningful relationship. So, don't expect it to happen overnight either, but don't sweep it under the rug and allow yourself to feel. Don't hide from it. Don't run from it, because I think that that's the challenged area here, is if you don't deal with it, if you don't sit with it, if you don't acknowledge it, then it becomes something that actually blocks you from advocating for yourself, from speaking up, from tapping into your intuition. It becomes more of a blockage for you, versus using it more as being open, having an open, vulnerable connection to your grief. So that way, as you process it, you're not holding yourself back from being connected with yourself. And then finally, I have the 8 of Swords as your higher self message. So I do feel, especially when it comes to this grief card, there is this element, and even speaking to the Page of Swords, I think really to all of them, even the High Priestess, there is this element of feeling like it's not possible. So maybe when it comes to your intuition, you want to listen more, you want to follow the directions, and you get those downloads and that pull in a certain way. Maybe you feel like you get it, you get the download, but you don't make any moves because you feel like it's impossible. Or maybe you're in a moment where you feel called to speak up and communicate your feelings and your experiences and your opinions and your ideas, right? And then you feel like it doesn't feel possible to do so. Or you have this grief and dealing with that feels impossible. So the thing around the 8 of Swords is it feels like your hands are tied. I mean, if you look at this picture, she literally, this is what she's imagining in her mind. This is what her mind is seeing. But in reality, she's not really bound and tied, right? So this is in her mind. This is reality. So when the 8 of Swords comes up, it's really important to understand that your mind is in charge of the narrative. Your mind is in charge of the perception of how you see things. And if you're not careful, you can start believing the narrative that you're telling yourself. So in this scenario, there's just this element of feeling like you can't move forward, like your hands are tied, like it's impossible to get to the next stage or the next phase, or just move forward at all. And the invitation around the 8 of Swords is understanding that there are many ways forward. You are not trapped. No matter what situation you're in, there is always choices. You are never trapped. And the analogy I like to use with the 8 of Swords is, imagine being in a locked room and you're trying to break down this door, and you're throwing furniture at it, you're throwing yourself at it, you're pounding on it, it's not budging, you're feeling it's like it's not going to happen. But you're so focused on breaking through the door that you miss the open window that's right next to it. And that's kind of the tunnel vision that the 8 of Swords brings, is you think there's only one way forward. And if you don't do it that way, then it's impossible to move forward. But that's not true. The truth is there are many, probably hundreds of ways forward. And you just kind of have to come above it, look at it from a bird's eye view, and shift your perspective and understand that the power of the narrative is up here. So if you feel trapped, take another look up here. Use your mind, use your imagination. That's another thing I will say that doesn't get enough credit, is imagination is your way of looking at something from a different perspective, even if you don't know how yet. Imagine it. What's another way you can break out of this room? And so overall, like I said, this is a little bit more of a heavier reading, But I do feel like overall, there's just this huge invitation to trust yourself more. So it starts off with that high priestess, intuitively listen to yourself, listen to your inner wisdom, listen to those gut feelings and those pulls in certain directions, but not just trusting yourself in that, trusting your ideas and your opinions and your experiences and knowing that they're valid and they matter. Your voice matters. Communicating how you feel matters. And then knowing that you have the power to get through whatever grieving process that you're struggling with. No matter how difficult it is, you will overcome it. Don't run from it. Sit with it, acknowledge it, love it. And I'm not saying love that you're in your grief, but give love to your grief. Give love to the part of you that's grieving, that probably needs it more than anything right now. And then know that you are in charge of the narrative. That has always been in your power, and you can always shift it. So listen to your intuition this month of July. Use your voice. Let yourself grieve whatever it is that is coming up for you. And know that you're not trapped. Even if dealing with some of these heavier things feels impossible, take a deep breath and take another look, because I promise you it's not impossible. So I wish all of you well this month of July. I hope that you all have a beautiful 4th of July if you're in America. If you're not in America, I hope you have a beautiful month as well for whatever holidays that may be coming up in your country. And thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time.
Are you in the need of guidance around love, career, family, life, or purpose? Embark on a spiritual journey inward with an intuitive tarot reading. Depending on what you're needing and looking for, I offer private one-on-one sessions as well as personalized email readings. It doesn't matter what the question is. A reading with me provides connection with your higher self, offering curated personal messages, or what I like to refer to as spiritual roadmaps, guiding you to the future outcome you desire. Readings are insightful and affordable. If you'd like more information or to schedule a reading with me, please see the link below. Thank you for joining me on another inspiring episode. Remember, your purpose is a unique and unfolding path. I hope these conversations have ignited a spark within you. Until next time, keep exploring, growing, and embracing the beautiful adventure of connecting with your purpose. Stay tuned for more meaningful conversations. If you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me on this journey.